just 20, 30, a bedroom community of Dallas, really.
Well, I don't have a specific interaction with the Muslim American community in Dallas specifically, but, I've had it in other parts of the country, and it's pretty much the same. They're very good to help law enforcement. I mean, we work so many cases of attacks on mosques and fire bombings, and they work with us all the time. Certainly there's a small percentage of Muslims, a very minute percentage of them that are engaged in terrorism. Of course, the world knows that. But it's not the 1.3 billion Muslims, and it's certainly not the Muslim American community that has any fault there. But this group here that was putting on an event, is known, Richard, as an anti-Muslim group. I mean, all of their writings and speeches are that. They're very anti-Muslim, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, as you said, has designated them as a hate group. So that just could be the motivation for the attack. You have two players here, so usually you don't have an act of a mental defective or someone who is sick or something. You have a conspiracy. You have two people acting with violence to shoot someone they don't like. Now, with free speech comes a lot of ugly, bigoted speech, but it's, still free speech, and armed gunmen are attacking that. Now, why they did it, the motive may be obvious in the case, but it has to be sorted out if that's the true motive by law enforcement. And so there's a lot to be done here. The main thing, though, for law enforcement, the Terrorism Task Force, the Garland detectives, and everybody, is to, once they can safe these two bodies and check that car for no bombs, is to get in there, and who are these guys? Their wallets, their cell phones, their IDs, their fingerprints, if nothing else, as quickly as you can to identify them, because, they're dead, but who could be acting with them tomorrow, the next day, who inspired them? This is really the time clock for law enforcement. I spoke with this very subject, this exact scenario, to the International Association of Chiefs of Police years ago, how critical it is on these kind of terrorist events to get that immediate intelligence to the broad law enforcement, investigative, and intelligence community to work that information out so they can stop the next attack. You can't just lock these things down forensically totally, because there could be more. Now, we hope there's not, and Garland PD said they don't believe there's any actors in the immediate area. Certainly they're checked and they don't see anybody, but they can't know if there's other actors in another state or somewhere afar.
Right. I'm going to go to Clinton in a second, but just before we do that here, Jim, I want to ask you one last question since you used to live in the area. I mean, one of the headlines, and I'm going back to January here from our affiliate, one of their headlines wrote, and because in January is when they had the Muslim conference that they were just reporting on, and when they had that conference at the very location where we have this shooting and the two suspects killed, at the very same center, they had the Muslim conference. And at that conference, at the very same location we're looking at today, there were thousands protesting the fact that a Muslim conference was that they were having there. Now, I'm not sure whether these were locals, whether these individuals coming in from other areas, but that then implies a dynamic. And I know it may have been some time. I'm not sure how long ago you lived in the area, not specifically in Garland, but there's a dynamic there. And were there any headlines? Was there any understanding of that as, again, the assistant special agent in charge there of the Dallas office that you were watching as a dynamic that would be of interest to where we're at today?
Right. Well, it's a great point. And we've seen this same group and this same group of people who run this anti-Muslim group do this around the country. They came to Nashville, Tennessee area to try to block the building of a mosque in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And they were some of the key drivers behind trying to block the mosque. The mosque, the members of the mosque and that Muslim community had been citizens of Tennessee for a long time. I mean, they were well-established Americans that lived here. They were not anything to do with terrorists, but they were trying to block the mosque with a lot of anti-Islamic talk. And so they're a very active group around the country. like you mentioned, Richard, trying to block the Ground Zero Mosque, and here's another example of, anti-Islamic meetings and speech. Now, again, it's free speech, but it can very well be bigoted and hateful and ugly speech. So we have people now who come to this event. We don't know their exact motivation, but we have two people who come to this event and try to shoot it up, and they shoot at a Garland Independent School District officer. That's GISD. That's what that means, Garland Independent School District. They shoot at him. He's unarmed. And then because Garland PD is on site, they are able to engage and kill these two assailants. So these guys are there to murder. They're there to go in and murder. There's no other purpose to do this kind of attack. They're there for mass murder. Now, who are they and what motivated them? And that's got to be, gotten on very swiftly. And I know the Garland detectives will. They have a great detective bureau there, and they've got so much help here. I mean, it's going to be plenty of help to get it done, but they've got to get on that, and they'll be doing it all night.
Clint, to you, Clint Van Zandt, former FBI profiler, MSNBC contributor. Clint Van Zandt, if you can please tell us in 30 to 45 seconds, again, this is the same location where there was a Muslim conference where thousands were protesting against that conference there to raise funds to open a Muslim center in the area. What's your reaction to that dynamic?
Well, again, as Jim's talking, you have to consider the motivation. Number one, you have the group that we've talked about that appears to be anti-Muslim. Number two, their contest, $10,000 to draw a picture of the Prophet Muhammad, which, of course, is totally against that religion. And number three, the keynote speaker was a Dutch member of parliament. He was on Al-Qaeda's hit list. So there were potentially a number of reasons why the event, those sponsoring it or those speaking at it, may have been targeted, may have been the reason that brought about the shooting tonight. So the authorities are going to be trying to identify that primary motivation and then see who they can link to it.
Clint, stand by. Jim, stand by. We'll be right back.
When you're living with diabetes, steady is exciting. Only Glucerna has Carb Steady, clinically proven